Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, I want to start with a question that, it feels absolutely universal, yet somehow it gets harder to answer the older we get.
Hmm.
It's a question we spend our 20s, our 30s, our 40s just chasing, often without ever really defining it. What exactly is the good life?
It's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Literally, sometimes, given how much we spend trying to find it.
Right. I mean, if you scroll through social media or walk through a bookstore, you get a pretty specific picture. It's all about the hustle.
Oh, yeah.
It's about accumulation. It's about, you know, optimizing every single second of your day for maximum output. It's this constant striving.
And there's an anxiety under that, isn't there?
Yeah.
We're all optimizing, but we aren't necessarily peaceful.
Exactly. But today, we are looking at a source that offers a completely different definition of success. A definition that, honestly, it just feels like a relief to read. We are doing a deep dive into Psalm 112.
A fantastic text.
Now, I know some listeners might hear Psalm and think, okay, religious text, got it. But I want to frame this a little differently. This is an ancient text. We're talking thousands of years old that offers this surprising counter-narrative to modern anxiety.
It really is. It's ancient, but when you strip away some of the language and look at the core principles, it's basically a manifesto on stability. It describes a life that isn't just successful in what you have, but stable in who you are. It's about becoming unshakable.
And before we get into the verses, because there are some lines in here about evil tidings and gnashing teeth that we really need to unpack, can you just set the stage for us? Where does this psalm fit?
So here's the aha moment right off the bat.
Yeah.
You can't really understand Psalm 112 without looking at Psalm 111.
Okay.
They're a matched set, a pair. Think of them as two sides of the same coin.
How so?
Well, Psalm 111 is entirely focused on God. It praises God for his works, his righteousness, his power. It starts with hallelujah. It's looking upward. But then you turn the page to Psalm 112, and the camera angle just shifts completely. It stops looking at the heavens and zooms right in on the human being.
Okay, so Psalm 111 is who God is, and Psalm 112 is who we are supposed to be.
Precisely. It describes the person who lives in alignment with that God, and it uses a lot of the same vocabulary, the same structure, to show that a human life can actually mirror the divine character. And here's a little fun fact for the literature nerds out there.
Oh, I like fun facts.
Psalm 112 is an acrostic poem.
An acrostic, like ABCD down the side.
Exactly. In the original Hebrew, each line starts with a successive letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, all the way through.
Is that just a stylistic thing, or is there a point to it?
Oh, there is definitely a point. It suggests completeness, from A to Z. But more than that, it suggests order. It implies that the good life isn't chaotic or random. It has structure, a deliberate design.
I love that. So the structure of the poem mirrors the structure of the life it's describing.
You got it.
So here's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the specific profile of this righteous person. We'll look at this promise of resilience, especially how to handle bad news, and we're going to ask how this ancient wisdom applies to our modern stress, our finances, and even our families.
And ultimately how it strengthens our trust in God, because that's the anchor for the whole thing.
So let's jump in. Segment 1, the foundation. The text starts right at the root cause of this blessed life. Verse 1 says, "Blessed is the man that feareth the Lord."
Now, we have to pause right there.
Yeah.
Because in modern English, fear usually means being scared.
Right. You're afraid of punishment. It sounds like a tyrant and a victim. You're walking on eggshells.
But look at the second half of that verse that says, that delighteth greatly in his commandments.
Delighteth greatly. That doesn't sound like terror.
No, it doesn't. And that's the nuance we can't miss.
Yeah.
The blessing flows not from just fear, but from delight. It's about joy, alignment. It's the difference between an employee who follows the rules because they're terrified of getting fired and an employee who follows the vision because they love the work and they respect the boss.
That is a huge shift in perspective. It's not just rule following. It's enjoying the alignment.
Exactly. It's an internal posture. The Hebrew concept of fear here is closer to awe or profound reverence. It's recognizing you are small and God is big, but finding safety and joy in that relationship.
So the foundation of the good life isn't anxiety about breaking rules. It's an enthusiastic alignment with what is good.
Perfectly put.
Yeah.
And then immediately after establishing that, the text pivots to the external results.
Yeah.
And this is where it can get provocative for people.
I know exactly what you're looking at. Verses 2 and 3, it says, "Wealth and riches shall be in his house, and his seed shall be mighty upon earth."
Yep.
I have to ask, is this just saying, be religious and you'll get rich? Because that feels, I don't know, a little transactional, like the prosperity gospel trap.
It's a valid question, and if you only read that first half of the verse, you might think that. But think about the context. In an ancient agricultural society, wealth was often a direct result of discipline. If you're delighting in the commandments, you're probably hardworking, honest, wise. You aren't wasting your resources.
So it's not magic, it's cause and effect. A disciplined, ordered life leads to stability.
Largely, yes. But look at what it pairs that wealth with. It says, and his righteousness endureth forever.
So the wealth is secondary to the character.
The wealth is a potential byproduct, sure, but the text emphasizes that the righteousness is what endures. Money comes and goes, markets crash. But the character, that lasts. The real asset here isn't the cash, it's the integrity.
Okay, and what about his seed shall be mighty? That sounds so epic. Like we're talking about warriors or kings.
Think of it more in terms of legacy. The seed is about descendants, family. When it says they will be mighty, it's talking about the impact of a generational blessing.
That's a powerful concept, especially for parents listening. We obsess over leaving our kids a house or a portfolio.
Right. But this text suggests the real inheritance is spiritual and moral. The choices of faith and integrity you make today ripple forward. You're building a moral inheritance.
It's the opposite of the whole self-made man myth. It's recognizing your stability today might be because of someone else's integrity yesterday.
Precisely. And your integrity today sets up someone else's tomorrow. A trust fund can be squandered. A framework of character that can build a mighty family that impacts the community for decades.
So we've got the foundation delight and the result legacy. Now let's move to segment 2. Character in action. What does this person actually do?
Right. And verse 4 gives us this beautiful metaphor. Unto the upright there ariseth light in the darkness.
It's wonderful imagery, but is it saying a light will turn on for them or that they are the light?
The context really suggests they become the light. In a dark, confused world, the person who has this internal order becomes a source of clarity and hope for other people.
So when the office is in a panic, this is the person who walks in and just lowers the temperature.
Exactly. They are the stabilizing force. And the text actually gives us the ingredients of that light, the specific personality traits.
Let's hear them.
Verse 4 says, he is gracious and full of compassion and righteous.
Gracious and compassionate. Those are soft words. Relational. It sounds like someone who is kind.
It is. But then verse 5 adds some steel to it. It says, he will guide his affairs with discretion.
Discretion. That's an interesting word. It sounds almost legal.
It implies judgment, wisdom, justice.
Yeah.
This is what I love about this profile. This person isn't just nice. They're not a doormat. They are smart. They manage their life well.
That's a rare combination. Usually we think of the shark, savvy but ruthless,
Cool.
or the saint, compassionate but gets taken advantage of. This text is saying, be both.
Be compassionate, but be smart. Lend, but guide your affairs with discretion. You need the soft heart, but you also need the hard head.
That brings us to verse 9, which connects directly to this. He hath dispersed, he hath given to the poor.
Yes, the economics of righteousness.
Dispersed is such an active word. It sounds like farming, scattering seeds.
That is exactly the image. You don't hoard seeds in the barn, they'll rot. You disperse them, and they multiply. This person understands that money is a resource to be kept in motion. You accumulate not to hoard, but to disperse.
And then there's that line, his horn shall be exalted with honor.
The horn is an ancient symbol of strength and power, like a bull's horn.
Right. And usually we think you get power by accumulating, by crushing the competition.
And Psalm 112 says the opposite. It says true power, true honor comes from dispersing, from generosity. True influence isn't from grabbing power, it's from giving it away.
That is so countercultural.
But think about the people you truly respect, whose legacy actually lasts. Is it the person who died with the most toys? Or the person who used their resources to lift others up? The text says their righteousness endureth forever. The money fades. The impact of generosity doesn't.
So we have this picture of a person who is delighted in God, wise, generous, that sounds great. But life is hard.
It is. And this is where the rubber meets the road.
This brings us to segment 3, which I honestly think is the most relevant part of this entire deep dive for anyone living today. The antidote to anxiety.
This is the core of the resilience message.
Verse 7. It just hits so hard. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings.
Evil tidings. Bad news.
I feel like evil tidings is just another name for my phone notifications.
Chuckles. It
Yeah.
certainly feels that way sometimes.
I mean, we are living in a 24-hour news cycle. We are constantly bombarded with bad news.
It's a constant stream. And notice what the text promises here. It does not say, he shall not receive evil tidings.
That's a crucial distinction.
The righteous person lives in the same world as everyone else. They get the same bad diagnosis. They see the same stock market crash. The text doesn't promise a bubble.
So what does it promise?
Immunity from fear. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings.
How is that even possible? When the news is objectively bad, how do you not panic?
The text tells us why in the very next phrase. His heart is fixed, trusting in the Lord. And again in verse 8, his heart is established.
Fixed and established. Those are construction words, like pouring concrete.
Exactly. It implies a foundation that cannot be moved. Think about it. If your well-being is tied to the stock market, your heart will go up and down with the ticker.
Right.
If your peace is tied to political stability, you'll be anxious every election cycle. But if your heart is fixed on something outside of those things,
Then the circumstances can change, but your heart doesn't have to.
that is the secret. Trusting in the Lord provides an anchor point that doesn't change. It allows you to stay steady instead of being driven by fear or panic.
It changes how you process information. You see the bad news, you acknowledge it, but you don't spiral.
You don't spiral because you have a higher context. Your ultimate security isn't provided by the economy or the government. It's provided by God.
That is something I think we all crave, just steadiness, the ability to look at a chaotic world and not internalize the chaos.
And the psalm implies this is available. But it requires that fixed heart. You have to decide where you're placing your trust before the bad news arrives.
That's good. You can't pour the concrete while the storm is hitting.
Exactly. This is proactive spiritual work.
Okay, so we've looked at the righteous life, but the text doesn't end there. It gives us a contrast. Segment 4, the alternative.
Yes, verse 10. The camera pans over to the wicked.
It's a pretty dark image. The wicked shall see it and be grieved.
What are they seeing? They're seeing the stability and the blessing of the righteous. And it drives them crazy.
The text says he shall gnash with his teeth and melt away.
Gnashing teeth is the sign of impotent rage. It's frustration. Because the wicked person has spent their life hustling, grabbing, maneuvering, and they watch this righteous person who is generous and trusts God succeed. And it just breaks their paradigm.
It's the realization that they played the game all wrong.
And then comes that phrase, he shall melt away. That image is so potent. It suggests that evil by its nature is self-destructive. It has no shelf life.
We talked about the righteous having a legacy that endureth forever.
Right. And here, the desire of the wicked shall perish. The principle is goodness frustrates evil.
Goodness frustrates evil. I like that.
The schemes of the wicked, the cutting corners, the power grabs, they might look successful for a minute, but they ultimately collapse. They melt away. But the life built on integrity, on generosity, on the fear of the Lord, that life is solid. It lasts.
So let's synthesize this. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
If we look at the profile of the person in Psalm 112, who are they really?
They are someone who finds genuine delight in God's ways, not out of obligation, but out of joy. And because of that, they're generous, compassionate. They manage their affairs with wisdom.
And emotionally.
Emotionally, they are rock solid.
Yeah.
They're not immune to pain, but they are immune to the paralyzing fear of evil tidings. Their heart is fixed.
And the result is a legacy that outlasts them. So what's the so what for us today?
I think the big takeaway is about redefining our metrics. We live in a world that measures us by our net worth, our job titles. Psalm 112 says, those are the wrong measuring sticks.
The real metric is the state of your heart.
It is. Real success is defined by integrity, compassion, and where your trust is anchored. If you have wealth and riches, but you're consumed by anxiety, you aren't living the blessed life described here. You're just a rich person who is afraid.
And that connects directly to our relationship with God. It feels like the text is inviting us to trade our anxiety for trust.
That's the exchange. God is offering stability. He's saying, fix your heart on me, and I will keep you steady when the world shakes. It's an invitation to stop trying to stabilize your external world and start stabilizing your internal one.
It's an invitation to stop being moved by every headline.
Exactly. He shall not be moved forever. That is the promise.
Well, that gives us a lot to think about. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a question to sit with.
The application question.
As you look at your own reaction to the world, when that notification pops up, When the market dips, when plans fall through, watch your reaction. Do you spiral? Or do you stand firm? That reaction is your dashboard. It tells you exactly where your heart is fixed.
And if you find yourself spiraling, don't beat yourself up. Just recognize it as an invitation, a signal that it's time to do some foundation repair.
Time to pour some more concrete.
Exactly.
And think about the legacy piece, too. What kind of seed are you planting? A mighty family defined by character or just by accumulation?
That's the work worth doing.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Hopefully this helps you build a little more of that Psalm 112 stability in your own week. We'll see you next time.